This webcast is going to be one of two webcasts looking at the business activity monitoring features in BizTalk Server 2006 Release 2. It's going to be level 200, so it's not going to be too challenging. We're just going to be taking a basic look at our activities. And the solution is actually based on the sequential convoy that I built for the sequential convoy Sushi server webcast. So if you want to get some background about what the application is doing and sort of why we're building this orchestration and how it's processing the data, then check out this webcast. It's going to be a straight run through of business activity monitoring. We're going to be designing a BAM solution, looking at the design decisions, and then creating a BAM activity. We're not going to be creating a view in this. That is going to come in the next webcast in part 2. We're going to be then deploying our BAM definition, creating a tracking profile, and then finding a nice way to be able to view the BAM data. The challenge is that if you've looked at the sequential convoy Sushi server orchestration, you'll see that it's using RFID to track how Sushi runs through the restaurant. What we want to do is to provide an actual view or a display to the chefs who are preparing that sushi. So we've interviewed the chefs, and what they're saying is they want to know how much sushi there is on the conveyor belt, and they also want to know what the types of sushi is on the conveyor belt, so they can actually plan which sushi they need to prepare. A couple of other things a chef had said. They've said they need the data in real time. They need to see up to the second updates about what's going on in the restaurant. And they don't want to have to click any buttons. They're going to be busy working in the kitchen. So they don't want a user interface where they have to click things. Everything has to update for them in real time. What I always do when I'm working with business activity monitoring is I always sketch out an idea of what my activity is going to be, and then eventually for the next section what my view is going to be. So I've just taken a quick photo of what I've got sat in front of my keyboard here. When I'm running courses, I always do this on a whiteboard to show the students what we're going to be creating at, what we're going to be aiming at. And it really helps to have this actual view specified here, so we know exactly what we're aiming at. And then the activity with all the data points. The actual wizards for working with BAM in Excel, it can be quite challenging to actually think about what you're aiming for and be able to hit that target just by running through the various options in the macros. So basically with this sketched out, we know exactly where we're going here. So a quick refresh of the BizTalk solution here. We've got a fairly simple sequential convoy orchestration, and we're correlating here on the ID of the sushi that has been produced. So every time the chef produces a plate of sushi and puts it on the conveyor belt, an instance of this orchestration will be generated. And as it goes around the restaurant, it's going to generate further RFID tag reads as it passes the tag reader as it's on the belt. So we know that the sushi is still on the belt, and once the sushi has been consumed, this is going to be the scenario that we're looking at. We won't get the actual reading, the actual tag read coming from the RFID reader. So we'll basically assume that sushi has been consumed and send a message appropriately. It's driven by this Windows Presentation Foundation animated application that I've built here. And this is going to simulate the actual tag reads that are being sent into the RFID system. And BizTalk Server is going to hopefully make sense of those tag reads and understand what is going on in the restaurant. So this is the application that I've built. As I click on the bits of sushi, they start going around on the conveyor belt. And we can see them appearing in the Group Hub query page. I'm querying here, and we've got two active orchestrations. If I place on another piece of sushi here and go in here and just do a query, 3 active orchestrations. And as I start to consume the sushi by just clicking on it with a mouse, it should disappear. The timeouts will kick in the orchestrations, and we'll see this number of orchestrations start to go down as the orchestration detects that the sushi is no longer on the conveyor belt. So eventually this number will go down to 0. You can see it's gone down to 2 now, and in a few seconds hopefully we should see this number go down to 0, meaning that we've got no sushi present on the plate. So this is going to be the solution that we're going to be building our BAM solution on, or we're going to be implementing our BAM on this solution to give us these statistics about what's going on within the restaurant. So to actually model the activity, what I'm going to do is to start off Excel 2003. You can quite as equally use Excel 2007. I've just got the 2003 version installed on this machine here. And what I'm going to do is just to take a quick look at the activity that I've specified here. So what I'm doing is I'm generating an activity called sushi process, and I've got 3 data points in it. I want to track the actual name of the sushi, the created time, and the consumed time of that sushi, and that's all the information I need to actually generate this view. And this is going to be sort of a more business analyst view that we're going to look in at in the next webcast, looking at how we can see for the different days of the week how much sushi of each type is produced here. So going back to my virtual machine, I'm going to go into the BAM menu and take the BAM activity option and generate a new activity, which I'm going to just check what that should be called, and it was Sushi process. And then we look at the data items that we're going to be tracking here. So we've got the name of the sushi, the created time, and the consumed time. So I'm going to drop on these items. The first item is going to be a name, which is going to be business data text. Now this is basically how the data will be truncated. It's set to 50 characters, so anything longer than 50 will be truncated. I'm just going to change that to 100 in case we get any really long names of the sushi there, and go in and generate the next item. Now the next item, if we look at the definition, is going to be the created time when the sushi was placed on the belt. So this is actually going to be a business milestone data type. Call that created time. Okay, that. And we've also got the consumed time. And okay, that. And you can see that they're both appearing as date times, which is a data type that we use for business milestones. I'm going to click on OK there and click on OK again. Now in a lot of BAM solutions you will be generating views on the data, but in this solution I'm going to do the simplest thing I can with BAM and just generate an actual BAM activity with no view. So I'm going to click on cancel there and then save my spreadsheet. So if I do a file, save as, I'm going to drop down to the C drive, generate a new folder called Sushi BAM. And save this as Sushi BAM and click on save there. So that's done, my activity is defined. The next stage is to deploy this into BizTalk server. So to deploy the BAM activities, we're going to use a command line tool, the business activity monitoring deployment tool. And I'm going to go into the command prompt, change down to the root directory, go into the program files directory, and then take the BizTalk server directory, which is that one there. And then go into the tracking directory. Business activity monitoring is very similar to tracking in a lot of respects, so that's why the BM tool is placed here. I'm going to change my prompt just to make it easy to see what's going on, and take a look at the exe files. So it's going to be the BM exe tool that we're going to be using here to deploy the BAM files. And if I just type BM, we'll get a list of the various commands that we can use to deploy these BAM activities. So what I'm going to do is to use the deploy all command here. We've got an example of how that works. We type BM exe deploy all, and then we specify the definition file. Now this can be an XML file, or it can be the actual spreadsheet file. And I'm going to go back into my spreadsheet and just export the XML. I like to prefer working with the XML stuff. So Sushi BAM, and save that. So here I'm going to take the BM option, take deploy all, specify the definition file, and here we need the actual path here, so I'm going to go down to the C drive and just copy paste that. You can see from the webcast that I often mistype stuff, so copy pasting is going to guarantee that we get the correct file names. And take this XML file here and just paste that in there. And this is going to be updating the primary import database with the actual storage structure, hopefully. And did something error out there? Yeah, I didn't need a minus in front of deploy all. So what this is going to do is it's going to be updating the primary import database and the other business activity monitoring databases, and provide us with a storage structure for storing the BAM data. And we can take a quick check on this if I just start the SQL Server Manager. we can go in and look at the changes that made to the primary import database. Now this is a very simple BAM definition file. I only had an activity specified. So we should see the artifacts generated in the BAM primary import database for that activity here. If we go in the tables section, down to Sushi process, we can see we've got a table here called Sushi process completed, another one called Sushi process active. If I drop on a new query here, and just do a select star on that table, we can see that we've got the actual storage there. The name, created time and consumed time is the 3 data points that I placed in my activity. And then we've got a bit of housekeeping stuff, record ID, activity ID and last modified, which is generated by Business Activity Monitoring itself. So what I need to do now, I've got my activity deployed in the BAM databases, and I need to actually tell BizTalk server, tell the orchestration interceptor, how it is actually going to pick up data from this orchestration. At the moment there's no connection between the orchestration and the BAM database. The great thing about BAM is, I've got this orchestration running in production. I don't want to go in here and start changing things, modifying my orchestration and redeploying it. So what I'm going to do is to use a tool called the Tracking Profile Editor, which is in the BizTalk menu here. Quite often we call it the TPE. And I'm going to use this to generate an actual tracking profile, which will describe how I want to intercept the data from my data source and populate my BAM activity. And to do this, we actually select one of the BAM activities that we've got present in the database. So that is going to be the Sushi process activity that I've just deployed. We're going to select an event source for that activity. So it's going to be the Sushi server project, and it's going to be the Sushi process orchestration here. And we can now make the link between the actual shapes in the orchestration and the data that's coming into the orchestration and the actual fields that we've got within our BAM activity. Now, created time and consumed time are both milestones, so they're going to be something that happens in our business process. And I'm going to link this receive shape here, which is generated when the sushi is placed on the conveyor belt, as being the time when the sushi was created. I'm going to scroll down in the orchestration and find the actual message that is sent out when the sushi has been consumed, and this is this send shape here, and I'm going to link this to the consumed time, so we know here when the sushi has been consumed. Now the name for the sushi, this is going to be present in the actual message, in the inbound message here. So if we go into the message payload schema, we will see the actual message that triggers this orchestration, a very simple message. And the type field within this message here is going to be the name of the sushi. So I'm going to link this onto name there. And with that, my tracking profile is done, so I probably want to save this. I'm going to do a save as, drop this down into my Sushi BAM folder. Sushi process TP, and click on save there. Now we can apply this tracking profile. We need to actually configure the orchestration interceptors to actually pick up what's going on in the orchestration engine and route that data into the primary import database. So we've got this configuration of what milestones and what data to intercept and to insert. So if I take the tools section and take apply tracking profile, that will actually successfully apply that, and we've got the tracking profile now present in Business Activity Monitoring, and we should be ready to start picking up our data. Now, when I demoed what was going on in the primary import database, I was selecting directly from one of the tables in there. Now this isn't recommended practice. What they've also done when you generated the tables is to generate a set of views here. So instead of selecting directly from the table, I'm going to select from a couple of views within this database. I'm going to scroll down, and we've got in the Sushi process section something called completed instances and something called active instances. I'm going to select first from the active instances view and then from the completed instances view, and just maximize the window here so we can see what's going on when I run this query. So clicking on execute here, you can see that there's no data in any of these views, and I'm just going to run my test here. Just start up the Sushi console so we can send some sushi through the orchestration. So clicking on this first piece of sushi, we're going to send one bit of sushi through. It goes past the RFID reader, and that should generate an instance of my orchestration. So going back to SQL Server and executing this query, You can see that we've got one active activity here for this piece of sushi, which has been generated, and this is the creation time for that. And if we scroll along, the consume time is currently null, and last modified has set to be something very similar to the creation time here. Going in, I can start to generate some more sushi that's going around on the conveyor belt here. And as we start to generate this, we're generating more instances of the orchestration. And in SQL Server, we should see more data coming in into this active instances here. So you can see there's several bits of sushi. We've got the created time, and they're active. They're going around on the conveyor belt. These spam activities have not been completed yet. Now let's go in and start consuming some sushi. So if I start to click on these before they get to the RFID reader, the orchestration should detect that these sushis have been removed from the conveyor belt. And because we're using business activity monitoring to actually intercept the data here, we should actually see that we've got some of these being completed here. So it's got 4 completed and 4 still active going around on the conveyor belt. And in the completed ones, you can see that the consume time here is being set appropriately. Going back to the console, I'm going to consume the other 4 sushis. And after a few seconds, when they should have passed the RFID reader, we're going to detect that they're not present on the conveyor belt. And we should see this data being replicated in the primary import database here. So there's 2 that are still active, 1 that's still active, and now everything has been consumed here. So this has got the actual view here of the sushis that have been consumed, the created time, and the consumed time. So when we interviewed the chef in the sushi restaurant, the chef basically said they want to know how much sushi is on the conveyor belt and what type of sushi is on the conveyor belt. They need this information in real time, and they don't want to have to click buttons. So providing the actual view to the chef, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making queries against the active instances table. You saw that the active instances are the sushi that is present going round on the conveyor belt. Once the sushi has been consumed, the chef doesn't need to know about that. They're just interested in how much sushi of each type is present on the conveyor belt. And if I just run up the test again with a console, and we'll drop some items on the conveyor belt here, just to generate some data in this view, and run this query just on the active instances. You can see that we've got these various sushis present. Now what the chef really needs to know is not have a list like this. They want to need to know, sort of grouped by the actual name, how many pieces of sushi there are. So I'm just going to comment out these 2 queries here and generate a query that we can use to provide the actual chef with that information. So I'm selecting from the active instances here, but I'm going to change what I actually select here. I'm going to select the name of the sushi and the count of activity ID. And because this is an aggregated query, I need to group it, so I'll do a group by name there and press F5. So this is a really simple view that we've got on the data. We've got these 3 types of sushi, 3 of these, 1 of these, and 3 of the others. And looking in here, this basically matches what we've got on the conveyor belt. If I generate 2 of this final type of sushi, we should see this appearing in the view here. So switching back to SQL Server, running the query again, you can see that we've got 2 of those types of sushis being generated there. So this is going to provide us what the chef wants to see. The challenge here is we don't want to have an interface like this where you've got to keep clicking the execute button. So what we're going to do is to build a Windows Presentation Foundation client that's very simply just going to query this data and display the results in a data grid within a Windows Presentation Foundation application. We'll build an sort of polling query on the database, so every few seconds it will poll the database and retrieve that information. Okay, so it's taken me about 10 minutes to actually build this query console. What it does is it's basically just got a list view present here. It's very basic. I've got a window here which is set to be always on top. I've got this list view control, and then I've just got some quick and dirty code here on an actual timer tick event here, which is going to be sort of running every 2 seconds to actually query the business activity monitoring database, run that query that I'd specified in the SQL Server Manager against the view of active activities, and then just do some data binding to actually set that to the actual grid view. I'm very new to Windows Presentation Foundation, so if you're an expert, you're probably seeing that this is a really bad code here. But it does actually prove the actual point and shows us the BAM data in real time here. So I've set it to start up the Chef console and the Sushi console when I go into debug mode, so it should fire off those two applications. And the Chef console I've set to appear as being always on top, so we can see what's going on in the Chef console as we're sending sushi around the restaurant. So I'll just place this up here out of the way and start to send round bits of sushi on the conveyor belt. And as those sushis goes round, you can see that the actual data view is basically displaying that we've got one of each of these pieces of sushi on the conveyor belt. I'll send another 2 of those and another 1 of those through. And you can see that that has been picked up with the active instances. And we can start sending through other types of sushi on the conveyor belt and see that being generated there in the active instances. Now what the chef may want to do is to actually make sure that we've got the similar numbers of other types of sushi on the conveyor belt, so we can generate another one of these. Unfortunately, I'm not really an expert on what names tie up with which items here. So we've got 3 of those, we've got 3 of these, and these ones here. So the chef can basically use this view actually to see how much sushi is on the conveyor belt. If one sushi starts disappearing, they can start to generate more of that specific sushi type and add those to the conveyor belt here. So it's looking like we need some more salmon nigiris. So I'll drop some more of those on. And now we've got 3 of those, and as people start consuming sushi in the restaurant, if I start clicking on these, we're stressing the system a bit here because I've got lots of stuff going on the virtual machine. But I'm going to start consuming these, and you should see the numbers of active instances of that activity starting to decrease as the sushi gets taken off the conveyor belt. And eventually, if all of this gets consumed, you should see the numbers of active going down to 0. It's going to take a while because the orchestration is waiting for the sushi to get to this tag, and if it does not get the tag read, it assumes the sushi has been completed here, being consumed. So you should see these 2 disappearing from the actual view there. So that's a nice way how we can use business activity monitoring in a very simple way. BAM does not have to be complex. Here we've only generated an activity, and the activity has been very, very basic. And instead of using the BAM portal, which we'll look at in the next webcast, we've built our own data access component here because we wanted to display the data in real time and actually modify the query that we were doing. But nothing that we've done here is sort of beyond the reach of a sort of programmer with some basic experience of C# to actually build the data access console. Building the BAM activities was very, very basic here. So just to wrap this up, I've chosen a very, very simple implementation of BAM, so I could keep the webcast short and so that people who are new to BAM would understand what's going on. BAM can be simple. You don't need to build sort of really complex activities and complex views. And when you're learning BAM, when you're doing your first 1 or 2 BAM solutions, take something that's just dead simple and run through an end-to-end solution. And that will give you the understanding of what's going on in business activity monitoring. And once you've got the actual grasps of how to build something simple, you can add to the complexity and build some quite complex and powerful solutions. If you choose something complex when you're starting out, you'll probably get lost when you're working with the activities and the views, and it will be challenging to get the actual end-to-end solution working. When you're querying BAM data, use the views in the BAM primary import database, and it's very easy to build your own ways of viewing data. We're going to be looking at that a bit when we get to the next section. Check out the other webcasts if you want an understanding of what I was doing. It's sort of quite an involved application, the one that I was using to generate the data. So the sequential Convoy Sushi server webcast will basically run through the background of that BizTalk application I was building. And then check out the next webcast I'm going to record just now, which is going to be BAM Part 2. We're going to be looking at generating views so we can generate a view on the process for the business analysts.